The Sean Diddy Combs federal trial revealed startling testimony Tuesday. A hush money claim for claimed sex recordings, injured bodies, and a Trump Tower tryst. Elizabeth Milner, our law and crime reporter, and I will discuss Day 7's highlights. You may be able to sue Depo-Provera for meningioma after receiving birth control shots. Morgan & Morgan is investigating reports that patients weren't advised about this risk. Checking costs nothing and takes minutes. Unless they win, you pay nothing. The federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs took a turn Tuesday when witnesses dropped explosive allegations from Cassandra Ventura's mother about Sean Combs' alleged $20,000 payment for returning or deleting this sex tape. Unbelievable testimony. Afterward, a former insider detailed this horrific night with firearms and Suge Knight. You allegedly sought revenge. I didn't mention this supposed male sex worker who was recruited to have sex with Ventura in front of Combs. Combs is charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitution transit. His plea is not guilty. The trial entered its 7th day today as prosecutors portrayed the Bad Boy Records founder as a manipulative enforcer who used fear, money, and violence to control others. To get the inside scoop on what happened in that courtroom, I want to call in our law and crime reporter, Elizabeth Milner. We see and hear what happens there daily. Elizabeth, I appreciate your time. David James, Sean Combs' former personal aide, will testify. His testimony proceeded. How could I not start with Cassie Ventura's mother, Regina? If Cassie Ventura is the star witness, her mother testifying is ridiculous. She discussed Diddy's demand for Cassie's sex tape. Can you discuss this? Yes, absolutely. This happened in 2011, over 14 years ago. This happened during the holidays. The Kid Cudi incident and Cassie's amorous pursuit of him were involved. Diddy was furious that Cassie was in a short relationship with Kid Cudi after introducing them in the studio. In December 2011, Cassie returned home for the holidays, as her mother Regina had claimed she regularly did. She always returns over holidays. An exhibit from that time is shown. 2 days before Christmas 2011, on December 23, 2011, we see an email from Cassie's testimony. Regina, Cassie's mother, and Capricorn Park, Diddy's former assistant, received that email. Cassie reported in her email that Sean Combs has threatened to expose 2 filthy sex tapes of me, one on Christmas and perhaps right before or after, and another soon after. He also stated that someone will physically harm me and Scott, aka Kid Cudi, but not Diddy. Regina said the sex tapes threw me when she testified today, Jesse. I knew he wanted to hurt my daughter. She took out a $20,000 home equity loan because Diddy demanded it, since Regina said he was furious that he had spent money on Cassie and she was with someone else. Regina had this loan or check prepared. After depositing in her bank account, she received a check and mailed it to a bad boy. 2 days later, Regina Ventura received the money. Regina said the money returned 4 to 5 days later without Diddy discussing it. Regina said she was worried about her daughter's safety, so she basically followed this order. It was a major sticking point in her testimony today. Since we witnessed some discussions outside of the jury, the defense didn't want this testimony today. They requested no jury hearing. However, this testimony may have affected how everyone interprets the situation, Cassie's role, and Regina's confirmation that this happened. When Regina testified, it was a major issue. We expected Regina to testify to support Cassie Ventura's testimony. Cassandra Ventura testified that Sean Combs coerced her into sexual sessions, beat her, and threatened her. We knew Regina's testimony would be corroborating. The alleged $20,000 payment surprised me. I mentioned corroborating testimony because I hear she was asked to take images of her daughter's injuries. Could you elaborate on Cassie's injuries? Regina must have struggled to testify, since we're seeing exhibit images of Cassie around this period, with injuries on her body, which she testified to under direct and cross-examination. Regarding Regina, we saw photo displays from 2011. Cassie was posed. Regina took these images. Cassie now has a shaven head. Regina reminded everyone that Cassie had her head chopped from 2009 to 2011. Again, these photographs date from 2011. However, this was the first time Cassie had spoken to her mother about her then-boyfriend, Sean Combs, Diddy's physical abuse. Regina also mentioned a blind item she saw online. I prefer to look at blind items in my free time. Basically, it's celebrity gossip without names. Just ways to get gossip. That's occasionally true. Sometimes it's contrived and exaggerated. Regina only remembered reading a blind item about Diddy beating Cassie in a car. An exhibit shot of Diddy employee Mia was displayed discreetly. It was shown privately. We're in the gallery, and I doubt the jury noticed this shot. However, the photographs we saw today in court were additional bruised photos of Cassie. The girl posed for her mother. Her mom preserved these images in case something happened, like this one, to confirm Cassie's stories. Some were distinct images from prior testimony days. Some were recent photos, too. But I think they really hammered home with the jurors what Regina witnessed her daughter go through. I think the prosecution did a great job establishing that Regina Ventura was physically abused. Even the defense acknowledged domestic violence. The photos, testimony of Regina Ventura, corroborating witnesses, and the 2016 audio suggest that she was physically mistreated. Is that sex trafficking? Racketeering? A separate legal issue. Did she also testify about a phone incident? What's that about? Yes, the phone incident occurred 5 years after the 2011 incident. 11 plus 5, 2016. Cassie turned 30 around this time. Regina came from Connecticut to Los Angeles, where Cassie lived, to celebrate her daughter's birthday. Regina phoned the police. Why had she called police? Because Diddy stole Cassie's phone. All of this upset Regina. She quickly phoned the police when Cassie told her what occurred. Regina argued with Diddy outside Cassie's apartment building. A snapshot of Cassie's 17th floor apartment building was on display. She claimed D-Rock was present during this argument with Diddy. His real name is Damian Butler. Regina called him Damian Butler, his government name, instead of D-Rock, which many witnesses have used during this trial. D-Rock played the middleman, seeking to de-escalate the situation, or at least spare Diddy from Regina's fury. Regina alleged Diddy had Cassie's phone throughout this. In the middle, D-Rock tried to break things up. Regina admitted she was trying to attack Diddy because she was so enraged. Diddy returned Regina Cassie's phone. He stole Cassie's automobile instead. I suppose this fed into the prosecution's theory that Diddy would grab Cassie's phone or car if something happened. Regina stated that Cassie's birthday was still celebrated around this time. Unfortunately, Diddy wasn't there. Diddy was absent from this birthday party, especially after what happened. August 2016 was just a few months after the Intercontinental Hotel incident in Los Angeles. I suppose the prosecution was attempting to emphasize that if Diddy didn't like anything, he would seize Cassie's phone and car. However, Regina became a mama bear at the end. Jessie, she appeared honest on the stand nearly all day. She seemed credible, validating parts of her daughter's testimony from last week. Her testimony was likely quite poignant, especially when she said she didn't know about Diddy's physical aggression or other things she may have witnessed. This August 2016 phone event is an example. She was a fascinating witness. She again appeared honest on the stand, stating that she was so upset she tried to punch Diddy. I thought she was a fascinating witness on the stand. You may question me about the cross coming up. Sorry everyone, no cross-examination. The defense probably made a decent move. What questions would they ask a victim's mom? Know what I mean? They presumably thought they wouldn't deny what she said, right? They believe much of this alleged violence is domestic, but not a federal offense. Or they think cross-examining her could sway the jury against us. We gain nothing by cross-examining her words. Not cross-examining her was strategic, yet she was an essential witness. Other crucial witnesses testified. I believe the Punisher, Cherie Hayes, testified. I understand Diddy and Cassie hired him. Tell us who he is. I believe he testified about a Trump Tower sexual encounter with Cassie and Diddy. He was this. Cassie hired this man performer for sex. What happened at Trump Tower? I thought Cherie Hayes might be one of Diddy's employees and talk about working with him when he was taken to the witness stand, Jesse, because he was wearing a suit. His tie was lengthy. He looked professional. When he testified that he was a male exotic dancer, I think many thought, okay, he's one of them. We next discuss his moniker, the Punisher, which he has had since school when he played sports. While testifying today, he described the scenarios playing out in these hotel rooms. In fall 2012, he was hired to produce a sensual, erotic scene. He claims he met Cassie and Diddy at a club event. A woman called him to tell it was her birthday, and that her husband suggested hiring a dancer. The Punisher, or Cherie Hayes, believed he would dance for a group of women at a bachelorette party to make them thrilled. However, a bathrobe-clad woman met him at this motel. She was wearing a wig when she opened the door, and he disclosed that she was Cassie Ventura. He said he had spoken to a woman on the phone or through text messages, and this woman asked to meet him at the Trump Tower and come straight to the room. He assumed a 45-minute concert would cost $200. He thought he was expecting a crowd of bachelorettes thrilled for this performance, but Cassie welcomed him again at the door. Cassie was alone in that room at first. Cassie informed him that her spouse wanted to have a child. Her spouse wanted her to rub baby oil on each other to create this scene and fantasy. Cassie gave him $800. He was given one condition. He was instructed not to speak to the husband. He then noticed that all the furniture was wrapped with sheets to the side. There was side water. Cassie and the Punisher applied baby oil to each other. He claims a nude man emerged. He recognized his Astroglide since he's an exotic dancer or has used it before. This man returned. The man is naked, but his face is covered. That was it. While giving Cassie commands to shift to the side or position your body a certain way, the husband was satisfying himself. The Punisher, or Cherie Hayes, said this contact lasted 25 to 30 minutes. Later, he discovered it was Diddy, his husband. He claimed he made more money following this experience. After receiving $1,200, he was contacted 8 to 12 more times. He initially thought Cassie was Janet because she used this alias whenever she called Cherie or the Punisher to play out this dream. That happened at Trump Tower in October 2012. Allow me to inquire. This is graphic testimony and may support the transportation to engage in prostitution charges for commercial sex work and prostitution. Is this sex trafficking? It depends on consent. Did he say anything in his testimony to suggest Cassandra Ventura disagreed? Other than that, these seemed like elaborate, serious acts. Did he tell the jury that Cassie didn't want to be involved and was forced? Graphic testimony was abundant. I blush sometimes in the gallery because the prosecution or Xavier Donaldson asked such specific questions during cross-examination. Regarding consent, the Punisher, Cherie Hayes, stated that he didn't consider Cassie's delight because they were creating a scene and playing out a fantasy. After this, an objection arose. It clearly was fetishistic. On the stand, Cherie Hayes said this. A defense objection followed. I believe that part was removed from the record. As for consent, he claimed Cassie would flinch and groan at some of her husband's or Diddy's commands, and she was looking for clues. The defense raised another objection, but it was rejected. But they were able to figure out that she was looking for indications from Diddy, the other male in the room. He was even probed about drug and alcohol intake. He claims he didn't observe Diddy drinking or doing drugs. I suppose the prosecution is trying to show that he wasn't drunk and that this was intentional. But then he, the Punisher, explained that he was having anxiety performing because there was another man in the room yelling directions, and he felt like he couldn't perform because of that. It was graphic testimony, some of which I won't discuss. However, from the Punisher's perspective, he sometimes couldn't tell if Cassie was really feeling it or just following her husband's orders. We knew he might testify because Cassie mentioned a Punisher last week. What happened during cross-examination? Wasn't he asked about a book he wrote? I have to say, Cherie Hayes, despite having an exotic dancer name like the Punisher, came out extremely lovely on the witness stand. He seems friendly. He answered all queries. If he didn't remember something, he was honest. Even though he had an intimidating nickname, he seemed lovely in his other life. However, he wrote a book about his interactions with Cassie and Diddy without naming them. It was at least 6 pages in this, perhaps 150-page book. This book was named In Search of Meat Freezer, which was intriguing. The conversation was mostly on his performance issues and how he had obtained a genitalia implant. During his cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson, he was asked about this book. He was initially questioned about co-owning Hunklemania, an exotic dancing business. He owns GetPunished.com. About 30 years ago, he started doing this. I wrote in my notes, Jesse, that Diddy was nodding and glancing at his attorney. He pulled his chair near to the defense table. His testimony was unclear if he was trying to engage the jurors. Xavier Donaldson said Cassie might have felt comfortable with you. Did you like Cassie? You assumed Cassie and you were alone in this action. I felt that the defense was trying to accomplish what they did with exotic dancer Daniel Phillip, another participant in these sessions. He implied that these escorts liked Cassie on the witness stand. The Punisher implied he didn't like Cassie. The government asked him to reveal the whole truth. In the 2023 interview, he told the government he probably liked Cassie. What the Punisher stated was misinterpreted. The defense is now asking for a play-by-play of the baby oil rubbing and how the Punisher executes strip teases and other things. They were trying to emphasize whether Cassie was agreeing to this behavior or whether she felt comfortable because the Punisher kept coming back. He admitted to making Cassie and Diddy references in the book. He called them a married couple and claimed their story was 6 pages again. He exaggerated the story for the book. I was at the courtroom assuming they would bring up the book as an exhibit or something. Basically, they didn't. He was having problems performing, they said. He wrote this book as a self-help guide to discuss the same issue with other males. From the Punisher's perspective, he was emphasizing that after this one interaction, where Diddy made him anxious by being in the room and giving him commands he couldn't follow, he was making the point. He published a book using that one point as an illustration. The book and its pages were not shown during this testimony. I found the point and title, In Search of Meat Freezer, intriguing. So you won't. I don't think anyone will forget that title. This much. His evidence doesn't indicate this was entirely coerced sexual experiences, in my opinion. A freakout occurred. Freakouts occurred. Very intense. They were elaborate. Paid sex workers. The prosecution may have to show that before seeking to convict Sean Combs. Important witness. Not surprising he contacted us. I want to return. I want to return to the morning. David James, Diddy's assistant, testified. He was back on the stand today to testify that as Diddy's personal assistant, he had to set up his hotel rooms. I'll ask you what that involved and what he did, since having employees, assistants, and security guards testify is important to the racketeering charge. Sean Combs ran this illegal organization, a pattern of freak-offs that he couldn't conduct alone due to racketeering conspiracy. Multiple others must have aided him. I was eager to see if David James's testimony changed the racketeering accusation. The Sean Combs indictment mentions how employees set up Diddy's hotel rooms. His words implied, what? Yeah. For those unfamiliar, David James worked for Diddy from 2007 until 2009. At this time, he said his duties included setting up hotel rooms. Although he didn't book the hotel rooms as part of his work, Diddy often employed Frank Black to book them. So they called setting up hotel rooms, advancing the hotel rooms. He brought clothes, toiletries, and food to the hotel. Interestingly, Diddy adores applesauce and Jell-O. Diddy strangely puts applesauce on his cheeseburgers, we discovered in court today. I found that intriguing. Interesting to say about that whole situation. This tiny factoid was discovered during Cross. Other products we'd bring in included toiletries, skincare, and men's razors. David James said he would grab a key from the front desk and set up the room right away. The prosecution was heading here, I guess. They discussed his need to pack a medication bag and an LV bag. This personal Louis Vuitton bag contained money, wallets, and other personal things. But the money was huge. It was around $10,000. Jesse, I don't know about you, but I don't have $10,000 in a bag in my bank account. Not to out myself, but security usually carried the LV bag. He said the LV bag, which was like a briefcase, had a medication bag inside. We learned more about Diddy's usual carry there. Remember that David James worked for Diddy from 2007 until 2009. He says the pharmaceutical bag contained Viagra, ecstasy, Percocet, and sperm-boosting medicines, and David James would pay for refills. Bad boys would reimburse him for his money. However, Jesse, some products were bought for in cash to avoid the bad lad. Condoms, lubricant, Astroglide, and prophylactics were paid for in cash, which relates to count 1. They were not carded. Basically, security guards would give him money like bonds. They wanted no money trail through the terrible boy. Another noteworthy element is that David James testified that other girls stayed in these motels as well as Cassie. I felt that was fascinating because he wasn't restocking these hotels to set up rooms for Diddy and Cassie alone, but also for other women. David James worked for Diddy from 2007 to 2009. I now realize that he mentioned Diddy having footage of him, maybe to blackmail or threaten him. Important traits when discussing Sean Combs' claimed criminal empire and convincing people to do his bidding. What did we discover? David James seems straight and honest in that courtroom. He seems to have taken his Diddy personal assistant job seriously, like his other ones. So he admitted it during his time.